Go.
Oh, hello.
That they need to work on that Zoom. That terrible voice that tell you you're being recorded. Sounds like you're in a sort of, I don't know, a 1960s sci-fi movie. Anyway, not a good way to begin. Welcome to the First State Kopites podcast, and we're now into season 3. We had a break over the summer, whilst the Reds, most of the Reds had a break. Some of the Reds had a break. So this is, if you've forgotten, because it's been a while, a podcast for Liverpool supporters in Delaware and their friends. And included amongst our friends, we have Hytham from Chicago today. We've got Daz from Baltimore, returning for the 55th appearance on the podcast. So thank you for joining us. Sean is with me as well. I'm Paul. And we are going to start slowly, I think, because we're going to do a sort of a quick review of what's happened over the summer. It's July 25th, so we're 3 weeks away from the season start. And we'll get in maybe a little bit to what we expect to happen over the next 3 weeks, relying on extensive data from our watching of the preseason games. Well, we'll see where it goes. All right. So for kind of looking back over the summer, you can go back as far as you want. I'm going to start with you, Hytham. What is what are some of the observations you would have about what's going on? Plenty to choose from: Euros, Copa America, like way too much as usual transfer speculation. Just as a quick aside, a tweet came up as I was preparing, which said Liverpool have signed Mbappe for 146 million euros. By the way, if you're listening, I don't think that's true. Just saying. So, Hytham.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Glad to be back on here, season 3. Honored actually to be back. It's been a really good summer so far for my viewing pleasure. Like I said, the Euros, Copa America. There was a period of probably 5-6 weeks where I was doing nothing but watching footy. The Euros, it was like 2 times, sometimes four games a day. And then right after that is Copa America. So I did a whole lot of footy watching the past couple of months. Enjoyed it for the most part. Hated watching in England, not the team per se, but just the fans and their idiotic behaviors. Definitely was rooting against the team. Again, not because of the players, the coach, or anything like that, but just because of their fans. But in general, I enjoyed watching the Euros, obviously because of what happened to, what's his name? I forgot his name. The Danish player. Ericsson. Thank you. Already forgot his name. Ericsson. I was, they were kind of the neutral, favorite team, and I was kind of rooting for them to succeed, and they did well. Got robbed in the semifinals. So for the most part, and then to conclude, I was pleased with the outcome because I did not want the English to win it all. And sorry, English people, nothing against you again, except unless you're an idiotic fan. Copa America was, again, the Euros was your, total football and nice, tactics and all of that stuff. And Copa America was the exact opposite. It was just kick everyone in the groin and move on. So it was, it was a good contrast. Again, was not pleased with the outcome. Not again. However, I was not pleased with the outcome because I did not want Messi to win anything on the international level. It's been a great few months so far. The transfers, initially, after the season, I was kind of anxious, wanting to have a few transfers to happen. But then I saw Van Dijk and Gomez, training and all that stuff. And now, preseason training. So I forgot about transfers basically. Just looking forward to seeing them play. Not sure when that's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen in preseason, but we know it's coming just because everything is positive so far.
There's definitely
And now, just to conclude, I'm watching the Olympics, but it's not just footy. Like I just got off watching a couple of indoor volleyball matches. That's one of my favorite sports too.
volleyball. Well, we're not going to talk about volleyball, are we?
No, no need.
No. So just go. I mean, there definitely were contrasting styles between the Euros and Copa America. That's for sure. I have to say I took the opposite tack when Tite wasn't playing any Liverpool players and he picked Fred and Richarlison for his team. I didn't think he deserved any better than what he got.
Yep.
But I wanted to remind myself that it probably is worth touching on whatever happened to Brazil in our conversation, because without Neymar in 2019, they were like a pretty decent team.
Yeah, they won it. Yeah, absolutely.
And they had 3 Liverpool players playing in that team in 2019. So. And no Richarlison. So.
Yeah, one last point. Sorry. I still think that chip by Di Maria, I think if Alisson was there, he would have dealt with it, even if he was outside the box, because we've seen it before. It's just I thought Ederson did nothing about it. Basically, he just kind of gave up as soon as he saw Di Maria in front of him. But I think if had Alisson been the goalie, it would have been a different outcome.
Yeah, of course it would. Yes, no question. So Daz, reflecting back on the summer of I wasn't particularly. I think we talked about this on the last episode of the last show, that we weren't particularly looking forward to the Euros, but actually, I guess it turned out to not be a bad tournament after all that.
Is this a sweary one? Are we allowed to?
Just remind me to unclick clean.
I'll make sure I do that. Well, my reflections are somewhat esoteric, because as you guys know, probably more esoteric than Items, who, by the way, is as beautiful in real life as he appears on film. I had the unparalleled pleasure of enjoying a couple of beverages with him, watching Italy play, getting through to the finals in Chicago as I traveled across this country. On that note, I watched a fair portion of the Euros on the road. And so thanks to the miracle of modern technology, I just dialed it up on my phone. The final, we were on our way through Montana, so I missed quite large portions of it, because it was the wilds of Montana and they didn't necessarily have the bandwidth to push it onto my phone. So I'm wondering if that wasn't a blessing in disguise, because I know that vast portions of that game were quite stodgy. I think that if I was going to give a synopsis of it, I think that England probably did score a little bit too early, and I think that Gareth Southgate humped the pooch. I think that if he had gone at Italy, I think that they probably could have kept them off their own doorstep, and it was only a matter of time before they put one in. But that's neither here nor there. I actually watched the second half of the Copa America in a bar in Missoula, Montana. So yeah, it was so my Euro viewing was and Copa America viewing was interesting. It was as I made my way across this great country, it was interesting viewing. Mm-hmm. One thing I will say about the Euros, and this is where the esoteric aspect of it comes in, it was very, very nice to see good officiating. I think that they got way more right than they got wrong. I think that for the most part, and there were some glaring issues or some gaps maybe in this theory of mine, but I think that by and large VAR got almost everything right. And it was nice to see it implemented in a different way, where it didn't seem like the referees had a vested interest in the outcome. What else did I see about this summer? Oh, you know what was really nice was like the 35-minute break that we got between the end of the season and the beginning of the Euros. I didn't realize how much I needed that 35-minute break, just after how incredibly intense that 2021 season was. So I was thankful for that. But I'm in your camp. I thought that the Euros, but I was dead set against it. I wasn't sure if my heart was going to be in it, but I think that it's not the best one I've ever seen, but it definitely isn't the worst. And at the final, it became about who I wanted to win less. I will say, like, the Italians did surprise me because I know that they're more renowned for their Tustude kind of tortoise, Roman tortoise type thing, where it's all defense and then try and score a cheeky goal on attack. But I think that they struck a really good balance throughout the entire tournament.
Yeah. So what I hadn't realized about Italy actually is that they've been trying to work on this kind of more attacking style for like 6 years. I may have, because Mancini got all this credit, and I read like a piece by Michael Cox, the guy who does the breakdown in the Athletic, and he talked about how well actually the previous two coaches had tried to do this as well with different levels of success. So we're all going to have to rethink our perspectives on what Italian national team tactics are normally going to be.
Well, I'm all about change. I like change. I think that in terms of if we are I'll dip my toe into the transfer market, and I really mean dip my toe by saying I don't give two shiny shites what we do this summer. I'm just excited to see us play. I think that Klopp et al. Have given us enough justification to say is like, they got this. Like, whatever comes of it. I know that there was tables being flipped all over the world about Jared Bowen. I'm like, you were flipping tables about Andy Robertson. We're flipping tables about Diogo Jota. We're flipping tables about pretty much anyone that wasn't Virgil van Dijk. So if the man knows what he's doing, and he obviously has a plan. So the one thing I will say that was about the preseason was that sense of dread started to creep in about watching us in the attacking third of the field. That was more of the same. I know it's early doors, and I'll preface it by saying it, but it does start to get those valves tweaking again in the same way. I was like, it just feels a bit flat. But having said that, again, I'll preface it by saying it's early doors, and I believe in what we are capable of, and I think that on the minimal amount of information that I've seen so far, it doesn't look like we're a million miles away from being ready for the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could probably find a series of tweets about every player Liverpool have signed in the last 5 years, apart from Van Dijk and Alisson, which says it's they're a waste of money and they're not going to be here. And there were plenty around Mane and Salah, for example. So
yeah, it's blue chip top rhetoric is what it is. It's it drives me batty. Like, give it a second. Like, just I honestly, like, I love the fact that Twitter's now, like, essentially says, you're about to sound like a complete asshole. Would you still like to send this tweet?
Yeah. Most people on Twitter don't use that language.
No, they don't.
Yeah. Actually, I saw that Twitter experimenting with a dislike button. Did you see it?
Yeah. I actually like that. But there's a like and dislike now.
And if you're watching, you can also follow us on First State Kopites. We have our own Twitter feed where we only retweet credible sources, it should be said. So
don't dislike us.
What's that?
Don't dislike us.
Well,
those guys are pretty cool, but that ball guy needs to go. Which one? Man, it's a couple.
We're not retweeting the Mbappe thing, just to be clear. Okay, Sean. So, what do you make of the summer so far? I know you definitely had some opinions about England's manager. I don't know if that's where you want to go, but
yeah, I don't. I gotta say, you gotta give him some credit because they made the final. I think they had a pretty easy road, but it's I don't like him. I must have been the only person or one of the only people that really, historically I would have been more supportive of England, and I usually don't like Italy, and this year was the complete opposite. I actually really enjoyed watching Italy play most of the games. Like Daz was saying, that I just thought their style was more attractive. Their midfield was just really fun to watch, I thought. And England was just playing this like Mourinho Chelsea-esque like style, and it was just, yeah, I mean it worked for them, but it was just, I didn't like it. I thought people sort of under appreciated the amount of talent that squad has too, um, especially in attack. And I don't think that he really used them effectively. And like I said, I mean, it worked for him. I'm definitely biased because of the way he's treated Trent.
Yeah.
That's kind of what set me off. But I also just don't think he's a great manager. But you'd never know that by reading any of the articles that the British press write about him, because they act like he's the second coming of Alex Ferguson or something.
I should say, Sean, Jonathan Wilson, who I've referenced a few times, who writes for The Guardian, has written a few different really good books on tactics. He did write a piece afterwards saying, England have to be careful continuing to play that style of football, he believes, because you're going to get many more teams now like Spain and Italy who are going to press like club teams do. And that's going to render the old-fashioned, let's have 4 attacking players and the rest of us stop goals, more and more redundant.
Yeah, and I thought that he kind of like that was saying. I thought he kind of bottled the final, just like he bottled the semifinal against Croatia. I think they got ahead, and then they just got conservative and sat back and almost invited the pressure onto them, and they couldn't handle it. But overall, I enjoyed the Euros a lot more than I thought I would. I thought it was, a lot of the teams were pretty interesting. It was Denmark's story was interesting. I actually found Belgium were kind of, I thought they played pretty well. I mean, they lost to Italy, but I thought it was as much hype as that Belgium team's had over the last few major tournaments. I thought their overall performance this year, I thought was better. Their defense let them down. They weren't very good defending.
Yeah.
But yeah, I enjoyed it. It was fun. And I didn't watch much of the Copa. I tried to watch some of the opening round of the Copa America, but like I mentioned, that it was, some of those matches were just tough to watch. And in most years, outside of Argentina and Brazil, Chile or some of the other teams, Colombia, like you'll have another team that is a legit challenger. And it didn't really seem like that was the case this year. There just weren't a lot of the teams in it just weren't playing very well, or weren't really set up. And yeah, in the final, I mean, I guess I was happy to see Argentina win, just because a lot of it was, like you said, Paul, not playing Firmino, somewhat understandable. Not playing Fabinho, okay, if you're going to play Fred, then it's not really understandable, but, you can make an argument. Not playing Allison over Ederson is just like, what is wrong with you? Like how, I just don't know how many people that are experts in football globally would make that choice, and it ended up, probably coming back to bite them. Yeah. I don't know if Allison would have saved that goal by Di Maria, but he certainly would have done a better job than Ederson did, and he's bigger on top of it, so he would have made it more difficult. But overall, I enjoyed it. I'm enjoying the nonsense of tracking transfers, even though I've increasingly don't really think it matters. Like understanding that our like Liverpool has almost perfected the process of identifying people in transfers. They have an army of these data scientists behind Michael Edwards identifying people, and then Klopp basically evaluates and picks who he wants. They look for certain types of players that Klopp wants. They identify a bunch, and then Klopp sort of has veto power, and it's worked pretty damn well ever since Klopp taken over the club. So, I agree. Like a lot of times there'll be transfers out there like Bowen where I'm just like, I really can't see that one happening. He just doesn't seem to fit the profile when you look at statistics and just like the type of player. But if they picked him, I'd say, well, they must be seeing something that I don't know, because they don't get it wrong very often. Mm-hmm. But it's, so that's been interesting. I would like to see us sign a couple players, an attacker and a maybe a midfielder. But if we don't, I'll assume that Klopp has a good plan, and I'm excited. seeing everybody out there, especially now Konate, it really did get me excited for the season. I mean, it's amazing. You know, we think I said this before last couple of podcasts. When we won the last 10 matches of the season, you know, without Van Dijk and Gomez and Matip and Konate. So that's only going to make it easier for us having those guys back there, obviously. And so I'm just excited to kind of see it all come together. I think most people were excited to start last season, and then just one thing after another kind of went against us. So I think a lot of people are sort of underestimating Liverpool, honestly, right now. You know, and so I'm excited to see them out there again.
It seems to me many of those people underestimating Liverpool are people who claim to be Liverpool fans. Because for the fourth season in a row, we've lost the transfer window. Edwards doesn't know what he's doing all of a sudden. Yeah. So, but just going back to your comments actually about the Euros, and I think one of the things that was not remarked enough on is how unsuccessful teams who ended up playing a game in Azerbaijan were.
Oh yeah,
Denmark were really good until they had to play their quarterfinal in Azerbaijan. So,
yeah.
You know what surprised me most? The most surprising thing before we move on about the entirety of the Euros was how quickly the media moved on from those people that shoved their way into the final.
Yeah.
Like that was like I not to get on a soapbox, but as Liverpool fans, we had to listen to how long about drunk yobs forcing their way into the Hillsborough. Like, granted, like there was no loss of life, but it was along the same lines, and ours was just proven. And we have video footage of these a-holes pushing their way in, and it was very, very quickly just that news cycle just moved on. And I not that I've really gone looking for it, but there's been no real like hoopla about what happened there and why it happened and the types of quote unquote fans that are doing this type of stuff.
Yeah,
that's a very good point, Daz. I mean, and there's been very little written about it from real journalists, but you know, it is one of actually the good things about social media, I think, is that you could see what happened. People had video in the stadium of what those people were doing. People sitting all around in on the steps, you know, taking other people's seats, all drunk, you know, not letting them get back in their seats. And you know, you had like families and kids coming in there, and it was an ugly scene. Some of the stuff that I saw, and some of the video I saw, and there's just no reporting of it. I mean, they didn't mention it, but I mean, I haven't seen many articles kind of going through what a disaster that was.
One quick thing, Sean. I don't know if you subscribe to the Athletic. I don't know if you would have seen Akiva O'Neill. She used to work for the Echo. She used to do stuff on the Anfield Wrap. She wrote a piece about the level of sexism that existed around going to the tournament and how intimidating it was. I don't know if people were asking them to make it part of their free package, so I don't know if it's out there, but it's worth a read. I mean, it you know, irrespective of the terrible behavior around the final, there just appears to be a level of a kind of just obnoxiousness to anyone who isn't us from this kind of this white male, whatever you would call them. Who
yeah, and I'm trying not to be too negative, but I totally agree with Hytham. Like the English fan thing has just changed, you know, over the last few years for me. Like at least from what I have understood or seen, and it's just, you know, it's gotten very ugly. You know, this nationalist kind of stuff.
Yeah,
and it's a big turnoff for me, and I can't support that, you know.
Well, somebody argue this is the same that it's ever been. It was just underground for a little bit longer because the average, I think in the 70s, 80s, and maybe even early 90s. Paul, you can probably speak more to this, more about this, but that was the perception of what your average English matchgoer was, and I think that they managed to bury that stigma, and here it is. It's just resurfaced. So it could be a terrible cocktail of COVID, of rising nationalistic sentiments. I'm not a sociologist, but it's definitely back to the kind of the same levels that people perceived it as back when I was in my teenage years.
Yeah.
Again, Paul, I could probably speak more to that.
Yeah, and just to jump on that, and in the 80s, I saw Liverpool in lots of places in Europe. I would never dream of going to watch England just because of like what you might expect in terms of fan behavior,
Mhm.
which, I mean, I guess that doesn't follow the sort of the general English narrative, but I think it's true that it was most of the time a kind of much safer, uh, like friendly experience watching Liverpool away than watching England.
Yeah, one thing to add that to what Sean mentioned earlier, or maybe just a different point to look at it. So Sean talked about how their style, the English team style, and Southgate's tactics work for them. I think, I believe actually that it's all because 6 out of their 7 matches were at Wembley. So
Yeah,
85,
that was a big. Yeah.
yeah, 85% of their matches were at Wembley. So take that away from them, I don't think they would have gotten anywhere close to where they got to. So that's just my own belief.
It was a huge advantage for sure, and that was underreported. I think they got on it once they made the final, but you saw some people talking about it, but you didn't hear people talk about that until then.
It is worth pointing out that in 1966 they played every game at Wembley, and FIFA changed the rules after that to prevent that from happening for host nations. So anyway, I didn't want to get too much into England, but it turns out we probably had a lot to say about that. So how about we look ahead? So we've had, I don't know, how's my math doing? 150 minutes of preseason. Lots of, we've been able to see Konate for 75 minutes. I hate I'm going to say this, but Naby Keita looked quite good in the 75 minutes we saw him for.
Can you say it a little louder? I didn't quite hear you.
Despite the fact that
Hold on.
Twitter seems to want to sell him to anyone. I don't know who's going to buy, but anyway, Elliott and Tsimikas were playing with the grown-up team. What else? James Pearce had an interesting piece where he basically said Liverpool will not re-sign all of the front three past 2023. We haven't even talked about Origi. So, Haitham, I'm going to turn to you, but kind of pick your topic. But looking ahead, I think we're all excited to see them kind of kick off against Norwich on August 14th. What of all of that cocktail kind of makes it more or less exciting?
So I'll talk a little bit about your mention of the Pearce's article about the front three. I mean, I think it's a given. I don't think, I think for me, Firmino is not, going to be part of the front three post 2023. I think Mane and Salah, obviously they'll do whatever it takes to re-sign them, extend their contracts or whatever. I'd love to have Firmino. I mean, again, we've talked about him so many times, so I don't need to jump back into commending him. But out of those three, if he's talking about the front three, I think the most likely to not be re-signed is Bobby, which is it is what it is. I mean, people players get older, and comparing him to Origi, at least his goals are not there, especially this past season or whatever, but he still scored. But he gives you a whole lot more than goals, and scoring goals is not his role. But I think, he is, the team needs a real number 9. I don't know. I'm just a big fan of old school football. The whole false 9 thing is not really something that I totally enjoy. I'm okay with it. But I'm a big fan of your Van Bostens and people that had the spear basically. Just longing for a person. Again, I'm just rambling at this point, but my point is, if Pearce was saying they're not gonna, the front three are not gonna be the same, the first phase of a player that comes to mind is Bobby.
Unfortunately, that seems likely to be true. He also had a go at it looked like trying to get Oxlade-Chamberlain to play the Firmino role in the first two games, which I know Sean was not a fan of. So Daz, what are you what's getting excited and what has you concerned about how the next season is going to shake out for the Reds?
Tsimikas, early doors, very impressed.
Mm-hmm.
He's not Andy Robertson, but he's kind of got like that similar wire-hair terrier type feel to him. He's a little bit, I think he's a little bit of a hothead in some instances, but I think that you see the same type of never say die attitude that less polished than Andy Robertson. But perhaps we do have a proper like fill-in left fullback for the first time, since Albie left maybe. Who else were we talking about? Oh, Konate. Oh my goodness. I'm still getting, I think I said this, I got like the same kind of Virgil, no, not today energy. Like there was the one with, and I didn't realize he was a little kid. Like he was, I think he was an 18-year-old. Was it against Mainz? And he just absolutely bounced him off the ball. And then he came back and fouled him because like, I'm not going to have that. But it was the same thing. He just seemed to glide across the pitch, just completely rubbed him off the ball and said, I'll be taking that. So again, early doors, but there was one, like he just seems, anything that comes his way seems to go back the other way. Who else? We were talking about Pearce. Look, I think we'll probably get to this. My sense is we need an assassin up front. We don't have one. And again, like this could be my own personal bias, but I think that we squander a lot of very good chances in front of goal. How many one-on-ones did Mo miss last year? There was the one, the most glaring one to me was the one-on-one with it was kind of a one-on-one with Courtois when we played Real in the quarterfinals there, and I thought that if he had buried that it would have been a completely different fixture. And there was a couple where we, like Mane too was missing, and I think if we get a proper assassin in front of goal, someone that just finishes, like a Butragueño, like just a complete vulture in front of goal, I think that we'd do better. Now, do we sacrifice what Bobby does? Probably yes. In terms of what you said about Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, I think when he came on in that role later on in games, towards the end of last season, he was actually very handy. The game against Wolves, who did he score against at the end of the season?
Crystal Palace. I think wasn't it Crystal Palace, I think.
As his cameos in that role were heartening. But I watched him. He does the same thing. He's such a confidence player. He has a tendency to fade in and out according to how he's playing. If he doesn't feel like he's playing well, he just seems to shrink back into himself until something kind of spurs him or he does something right. And you'll see him like a flurry of activity for the next 5 minutes. But if he tries to take someone and loses it, you see him kind of shrink back into his shell. And look, the guy's had like injuries over the last 3 seasons, so you can see why that might be the case. But I think in a cameo type role, last 15 minutes, I'm not convinced that he wouldn't. I am convinced that he probably would be. I'm not going to go with the positive instead of the negative. That he could actually be a benefit to us. But I still think that we need someone that finishes. Yeah. And again, we will have to sacrifice. I'm not sure we're going to get, like, Haaland comes to mind because the guy he's big, he's strong, and he finishes, but he's not going to necessarily give you what Bobby gives you. So you are going to have to make a sacrifice there. And I'm wondering if that's what Klopp's looking at overall. Is like he believes that we'll get enough chances to win games, and he won't sacrifice that for someone that's just gonna poach for you. I don't see us needing anyone in the midfield in terms of what Pearce is saying either. But in 2 years, these guys are all in their 30s. Mo looks like he could probably play well into his 60s at the top level. He's an animal. You could probably say the same thing for Mane, barring some sort of like major lower body extremity injury. These guys could play well into the mid 30s and play at a really high level. if not on athletic talent ability alone, at that point on experience and guile. But it does make sense because they're going to try and exact maximum value from them. And that sweet spot's going to be 31, 32, 33, where they'll start to be diminishing returns. They're going to definitely get more for money and more than they paid for them, regardless. But I think that it makes sense moving forward. So we are going to have to start identifying what those replacements look like. And 2 years is a long time for the development of young players. So there could be someone that's going to burst onto the scene next year that we've never heard of. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why all the top rhetoric that's going on, it angers me. It's because it's the immediacy of it. It's these people, and I think I've used this analogy before, they're willing to eat their own children at the sign of the loss of a meal. There's no patience. There's no belief in the system. It's like the immediacy and that immediacy bias.
It does strike me that like even 10 years ago, maybe less than that, no one's saying they've only got 2 years left on their contract. What's going to happen?
Yeah. 2 years is a long time.
Right.
Yeah.
I definitely hear you hear the noises about definitely want to re-sign Allison, want to re-sign Van Dijk, want to re-sign Salah. I don't hear the same noises. Well, there was some like the question mark about like Henderson's contract, but I don't hear the same noises for sure about Firmino or Mane, or maybe I'm missing it. But all the others, like if you look at the Liverpool Echoes feed, have come up multiple times about Liverpool trying to negotiate a new contract with each of them.
Well, I'd be interested kind of tangentially if we're talking about transfers. I know that it's on the agenda somewhere, but what your feelings about Henderson are? Because everything that I'm reading so far, this doesn't feel like something that Jordan Henderson would float out. It doesn't feel like something that Jordan Henderson would sign off on his agent floating out. Yeah. And I really hope that I'm right about this, because if not, it'd take a lot to take him out of the highest of my esteem. But it's like it just feels like such a terrible way to try and go about the business, and it essentially is kind of the twilight of his career. He's got his injuries are stacking up. I don't think that he's going to be able to play to the same high level that he has in previous seasons. Again, I'm always happy to be proven wrong, but I think that the experience and history would tell us would probably be more on my side to say that he's not going to be able to get the minutes or the mileage that he did before. And I'm just be interested to see what you guys think about how this whole Henderson thing, how this playing out.
Happy to go first, because I think a couple of things. I think FSG, and obviously they were in the news with the Gini Wijnaldum comments yesterday, have approached this in quite an analytical way, which kind of looks like it might be kind of cruel. But I think one of the things that they may have observed is how many minutes Henderson's played, kind of last few years. I think he's had an injury, I think I'm right in saying, in each of the last 3 seasons at least. And I found it interesting today that there was a report that he was training with, was it Mallorca in Spain? Because he's been given time off. And it makes me wonder whether, this is like how Jordan Henderson responds to most things. I'm going to just work at it to show them I'm worth that 3-year contract. So I do think it's more like to be on the FSG side than it is on the Henderson side. And I hope I'm not reading too much into the coming back from training early just so that you can steal a march.
I think it's, both with Henderson and Gini, they look at the contract that Milner got, and they're thinking, well, why wouldn't I get that? And I think, there are a variety of reasons why you wouldn't. First of all, Milner's kind of it seems like his career is coming to a close soon, but he's been a machine for 17 years. I mean, different athletes are different. They break down at different rates. And it seems like, I don't think it's a stretch to say Henderson's had 2 season-ending injuries now, 2 years in a row. And it's not that he wouldn't play an important role for us, but it wouldn't surprise me if FSG weren't offering him the same type of extension, or even an extension at the same wage that he's at now. And so that's my read on what the Henderson thing is. I think it is his agent just trying to push to get him a good deal. And more power to him if that's what it is. But it does stir up all this nonsense. But soon enough we'll be into the season, and I think a lot of it will be past us. I think they will extend him, and they'll come to some sort of agreement. But anyway, that's my read on the Henderson situation. I think it really is just
you're not thinking they're replacing him with Jared Bowen then?
No. I don't think there's any way that we're getting rid of him, and I don't think there's any way he's leaving. I think it's a contract negotiation. They're just negotiating terms and wages. Doing it publicly sometimes is how agents try to get their way. So
I advise everyone to watch Olympic volleyball until August 16th. That's how I'm avoiding all the nonsense.
I was watching diving a little bit today and swimming.
Uh-huh.
What was Rashford doing out there?
You beat me to the punch. I was going to say, actually, I did want to mention something else about Neymar. No, it's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I think Team Great Britain is going to win it this year. The diving. You get it?
That's much better than the Neymar one. Yes. Richarlison hat trick I saw the other day. Good Lord, team must have been terrible, whoever they were. So Sean, kind of, I guess last word on we'll kind of do one more rapid round of kind of things that caught you this week. But what are you looking forward to in the next 3 weeks and beyond? And
I'm looking forward to seeing more of our lads play. I only got to see the 45 minutes this week, but I was excited. I was excited to see Konate. I thought Naby looked really good, but we know he's not super reliable, so I'm not getting too excited about that. But having said that, it would be really nice to have that version of Naby around all the time. I actually thought Mane looked good, at least compared to how he was last year. I thought he looked more like his old self again. I did not like Ox in the 9. I won't go on. I just didn't think it worked. I like Ox in the attacking midfield role, and I could see him eventually developing into that role, and I think he could play out wide, and maybe Mo or Mane play in the middle. But I just thought it's like just the positioning and link up play just wasn't really there, and I thought Harvey Elliott I'm excited about, and we know he seems like a really good guy based on the interview we did with forgetting his name, who knows his family, but I don't. It seems like they're trying to transition him into a midfield role, and he doesn't quite seem there yet.
Yep.
So in that 45 minutes, I think. So my takeaway from the 45 minutes we saw them play was that those like kind of Ox and Harvey were sort of part of the issue up front in terms of like the link up play and kind of creating chances. So I'm really not concerned about that. If Mane's playing like that, and we kind of have our first team squad together, I'm really excited to see us hopefully get back closer to that 18, 19, 20 form. And I think we will. I mean, I'm probably a little bit naive, but I'm pretty optimistic about this season. I think we'll get back to where we were. Just excited to see more of that.
Yeah, I think from one perspective you could take is it's really early yet. I don't know about you, but ordinarily, like the first preseason games, I don't even if you even watch them. I mean, they're usually against Fleetwood and Blackpool. So
no, I don't. Yeah, it was. We mentioned this before, not to go too long because I know we want to wrap up, but it's like this has been like a normal season and a normal gap from the end of the season, but it seems like it's been a really long time since Liverpool's played, and it's because we made 2 Champions Leagues in a row, and then we won the league in that the weird pandemic season where it ended real late and the season started. So we haven't had a normal period of time where it's been this long between when they've played, and it really does I think that's part of why I got so into the Euros and Copa America, because I was just like starved to watch some football. We're used to watching this great team so often the last couple of years. So I'm just, I'm excited, happy to see him back.
Yeah, and hopefully with fans that will help our team
Absolutely.
more than some of the others.
Yeah.
Although that's still to be determined. I don't know if you saw this, the 2 preseason games they've got at Anfield, which are like back to back. I don't really understand that. Will have 75% capacity.
I think it's worthwhile. I mean, you mentioned before, I think we started recording that they're having, cases rise, and I think they got to be cautious. I think that makes sense. But 75% is a hell of a lot more than we had last year, even when we had fans there. So
yeah.
Did I read something about the Premier League's now saying that they won't allow unvaccinated fans into stadiums?
I believe that's proposed from October 1st, but I don't think that's the Premier League. I think that's what the governments have said about kind of big events and nightclubs, and that you can't go to any of those places without being double vaccinated is the language they've used. I don't know what that means for the J&J vaccine, but anyway, maybe it's not
or
approved.
the other one, yeah.
So well, definitely rules out. Anyway, stop it. I was going to go down the path of talking about Russian and Chinese vaccines, but that's not our topic. Okay, let's do a final round. Kind of just one thing that caught your eye this week, maybe just to entertain us and finish off today's episode. Hytham, I'm going to go to you first. One thing that caught your eye.
One thing that caught my eye, to be honest, so many things, and I can't think of a particular thing at this time. Just like everyone else, happy to see the team play preseason. Although I know it's just no one is really putting in everything that they got. The fact that it's been a while, and I'm just happy to see them again, and just excited that the team is playing again.
So if I were you, one thing I would have shared is this kind of love fest that's going on between Matip and Virgil van Dijk with to each other.
Gomez too. There's a bromance with Gomez too.
Nah, it's the CB squad. I love their energy. Matip is just. I mean, I've always liked his quirky persona. He's just funny. Every time I hear him in interviews, I just crack up. I mean, it's not really. I don't know. It's just different. He's a different personality, and I love watching him. But the whole thing, about the T-shirts, the one Van Dijk made of Matip, and he was holding it. Now Matip has a T-shirt of Van Dijk holding his T-shirt. So it's I don't know where it's gonna end, but I'm loving it so far.
So I don't know if you're on Twitter, right? There's a Twitter handle called No Context Matip.
Yeah. I'm now following it, but I see a lot of his tweets. Yeah.
My favorites are always when he gets pissed off about something and he does that stiff leg march towards me. It kills me every time I see it.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys watched the commercial. Was it last summer? I think the one for
coconut water.
The coconut water. That was a classic. Yeah. When he starts, just narrating facts about something. I don't know. What was it? It was about animals or something like that. That he was, and everyone was just like looking at him. I personally think that's his personality. That's how he is as a person. Like, if you have a conversation with him, that's how it's gonna, look like.
Hopefully, he can stay fit for longer this season, because I do think he's an awesome footballer. So, Daz, did I steal your thunder?
No. Mine is actually, I'm looking forward to us winning the soon-to-be vacant 18-19 title when City gets stripped of all of theirs. When all I think we might get 13-14 too.
Yeah. Well, if we get 13-14, though, United will get the one from the 2 years before. So
never heard of him.
So got to be careful.
Is that a possibility? I mean, I've been avoiding it just because I'm too facetious about FFP and all of that stuff. But is it really a thing?
Well, apparently a couple of English judges struck down the Man City lawyers' request to have any documentation that came out of those leaks. So apparently they've had journalists sitting in these court cases that couldn't say anything until they were given the go ahead. But honestly, like I'm the same as you. I'm so jaded about this. It'll probably be like, you have to pay $652 trillion, which they'll just write a check for and make it back in 30 minutes later. And they'll get to just go about doing business as usual. But it's apparently like there's some chops to it this time, like as there were last time. So I don't know, but it's people are going mental about it online, like, take away all the titles, assassinate the court. Like it just it's myriad things that come out of it. But it seems legit, because one of the biggest things about this was like you can't punish the manager, you can't punish the players. It's not their fault. I'm like, but they're in a system that was set up to win, and they won as a result of all of the chicanery that was going on the outside. So
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly, yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't know. I'm like, it was just a nice little distraction. My other thing was Cade Gordon. I was quite impressed with that youngster. They need to get some stakes in him, and once he grows into his own skin, I think that he might be looking a little bit of a player there. Again, it's young. There's a long way to go. There's a whole bunch of like extraneous stuff that can affect the way that he plays. But on what I've seen so far, is like I'm quietly impressed with some of the, in particular him, but some of the other youngsters as well. I think that our future is looking a lot brighter than it was probably 10 years ago.
Yeah. And even if some of those guys don't make it, they're going to kind of be able to chip into the coffers for kind of other players down the line, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Harry Wilson was 12 million pounds worth of straight burglary. I feel like that's grand larceny. I think we put a gun in Fulham's face and
well,
yeah, it was a good, yeah. I mean, and remember the fee we got for Jordan Ibe?
Yep.
Now that was robbery. I'm not sure about Wilson.
Brad Smith.
Yeah, we got. I mean, so there'll be plenty of those, even if they can't make the squad. But yeah.
So Sean,
I was actually going to build on that point. We signed another young, prospect, Bobby Clark from Newcastle this week, and he's also a winger. But he, I guess he set a Newcastle record. He started their under 18 match for them when he was 14. So supposed to be, another really talented youngster. So it seems to me, I brought this up a couple times before. It seems like this is a strategy almost that we've taken since we've started winning things, that we're not going out and buying, the top players in the world, but we are trying to pick up as many of these up and coming young talents, between 14 and 16. We're, spending money to go get them. And we're bringing them into our new world-class training facility. So I think it's a great thing. It's hopefully we can develop, type of youth program that some of the other top clubs in the world have. And yeah, like you said, there's nothing bad about it. You can develop players in a good way and hopefully help their career. You don't want people sitting on the sidelines being loaned out year after year. But if you get a good fee for them, and hopefully we can bring more of them into squad like Curtis Jones and Trent. But I just think it's an interesting thing to kind of keep an eye on.
I think in the last couple of months as well, they've signed at least 2, if not more, of the team that played in the Youth Cup to long-term deals. I think in some cases, first professional contracts.
Yeah.
So again, they look great prospects, but if it doesn't quite pan out at Liverpool, then they'll do a job somewhere. And
Cade Gordon in particular, I remember it was a big deal when we signed him last year. He's supposed to be a really legit, potential future international. Yeah. And it was interesting that he was playing in the second half of that match this week, because he hasn't really been with the club very long. It's only been about 6 months.
Yeah. He was cup
so
tied.
It's pretty impressive. Yeah.
He was cup tied for the FA Youth Cup, so it has to be within the last season.
That finish was cultured, because if that hadn't been offsides, that was a very cultured finish for a kid his age.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and apparently he's like projected to grow, so he's going to be relatively big, like well built. Yeah, at least they think now. I mean, again, you never know. He's 16, but so
What models are they using for that?
I would.
I'm interested. Like, is it one of those those carnival things where you go and stand in front of a mirror? This is what
They
he could
project all this stuff out now. They have all
use
this. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, a lot of these youth systems now they track a lot of this stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not an expert on it, but
This is real science, not the XG nonsense, right?
I was just gonna say his XG has gone up.
life.
So, well, let's wrap it up. Actually, there's one thing I did want to mention. I'm surprised you didn't mention this, Sean. You shared something yesterday when Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it was announced, it was a new contract at Manchester United, that he had won more games in the Premier League in that period he'd been manager, except for Manchester City and Liverpool. But the interesting thing was the difference. Like he'd won, I think, 180 games.
it was 180 points, and I think
points.
Man City was 221 and Liverpool was 217. But what they leave out from that is that if you just account for the 2 full seasons he managed, they averaged under 70 points for those 2 seasons.
Yeah.
So
Did you guys see the QPR fans singing "Ollie at the Wheel"? Yeah, I'll send it to you. I had a good laugh at it. So it was a very vocal contingent of QPR fans when they played them recently. Ollie's at the wheel, Ollie's at the wheel.
Long may it continue. Okay, here ends episode 1 of season 3 of First State Kopites podcast. If you enjoyed it, please share it with a friend. I'm reliably informed. Like, you need to share it right now as soon as you're listening, otherwise you'll forget. So, and again, we're on Twitter, First State Kopites, and we only retweet what we believe are credible sources. So, no Mbappe. I'll leave it there. Daz, Hytham, Sean, thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you.
We'll be back next week, I think.